Has Donald Trump really stopped trusting Putin, and will NATO dare to shoot down Russian airplanes and fighter jets? This and other topics we'll discuss right now. My name is Irina Uzlova, and today with us is Yuri Rashkin, host of YouTube channel Rashkin Report and Rashkin Report in English. Yuri, hello, glad to see you. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky believes that US leader Donald Trump finally wants Ukraine to win. He said this in an interview with Axios. He added that American society does not respect and doesn't trust Putin, and for the most part they do not believe that he wants to end this war. So now you believe that President Trump finally wants Ukraine to win? The interviewer asked. Zelensky replied, yes. At the same time, The Telegraph reports that Zelensky asks Trump for Tomahawk missiles in private United Nations meeting, because Zelensky told really that he asked Trump about new weapon, a new strong weapon. So we see that, according to The Telegraph, they talk about Tomahawks. Yuri, I have two questions to you. Do you believe that Trump really has stopped trusting Putin, wants Ukraine to win, and will Trump give us Tomahawks?
I think that Donald Trump is kind of filing for bankruptcy number 7 here, because he is saying that he's not able to do anything. He was not aware of all the problems with the building before he bought it, and so now he sees that apparently it's in bad shape. So he's out of here, and good luck to everybody. And he's off to the next deal that he can make, because this deal is not happening, and Donald Trump is there for the deal. And I think we can safely be assured that Donald Trump will always love Putin. I think that no matter what he thinks about Russia as a paper tiger, which, by the way, is a Mao Zedong quote. Since when is, I mean, I guess it kind of shows you the age of Trump, that he is quoting Mao Zedong, who was speaking about Japanese and Western, imperialists, and how they really are a paper tiger. So that's kind of a strange reference, but okay. Again, this building, I thought it was something different, but it turns out it's a paper tiger. It's not what I thought. So poor Trump was lied to. Who lied to him? Is it Pete Hegseth? Is it? Who did it? Clearly, this is Biden's fault. But I think that Ukraine is doing some really good things. Absolutely. Ukraine is doing some really good things by changing its rhetoric, because shifting away from the victimization and speaking about the horrible things that Russia has done to Ukraine has been, I think, a very effective move in communicating with this administration. Because this administration doesn't look at human rights or democracy or justice other than as a bargaining chips. And so if you're using it to bargain for more weapons, then we can understand, but it's not a very valuable chip. Do you have anything more valuable in your wallet? But if we're talking about Ukraine has strength, Ukraine is and Russia is weak, then that's a much more winning model in communicating with this administration, which we know wants to be with the winner. This was verified when we saw how this administration and this president decided to join Israel in its war against Iran after he saw how awesome it looked on Fox News. So if we're going to see this kind of a dynamic, then of course Ukraine has to show, and it has a lot to show for it too, because Russia on fire is a very powerful visual. Endless lines for gasoline in Russia is a very powerful visual, because it does show that paper, not paper, tiger or bear, or let's say bear as Russia insists that they are. Okay, well, that's a wounded bear. And wounded bear is vulnerable and weak and more dangerous, which explains why dying wounded bear is trying to send its drones all over, show that it's dangerous when it's really wounded and burning. And I think Trump is seeing weakness. He's sensing weakness. He understands that in spite of what he said in February, February about Ukraine having no cards, it turns out that Putin may have lied to Trump, and really it is Russia that's running out of cards and not Putin and not Ukraine at all. And in this context, bringing up Tomahawk missiles seems like on one hand, very bold and very brazen, but also a very aspirational message because it speaks of Ukraine as having grand ambitions of taking out the aggressor that Trump has admitted Russia is, and showing strength by eliminating the aggressor with American help. In a sense, Zelensky is asking Trump to almost do for Ukraine what he's done for Israel, and provide that final knockout hit that will send the aggressor scrambling. It's an interesting approach that I don't think really expects Donald Trump and America to give tomahawks to Ukraine. But it is extremely appropriate message because even if, of course, Ukraine doesn't get tomahawks, I think it would be quite surprising considering that for the most part, they also need to be launched from submarines. So I guess then there's some on-land installations, but that's far and few between. Mostly we're speaking about submarines. So exactly how is that? Does President Zelensky also would like a submarine or two? What exactly is his ask there? But I think his ask is to show that Ukraine is strong. Ukraine is destroying and setting Russia on fire and is planning to go all the way until Russia, to go to Biden's logic, will understand that the cost of the aggression is too high, and therefore we'll see perhaps the death of this doctrine that we can blame Biden, we can blame Sullivan, we can blame any basically American president, for this false doctrine of strong Russia. Clearly, any country that positions itself like Russia did would have been able to do this in 3 days. That's what Trump said. And so I guess maybe now the new doctrine is Russia is weak. And let's see if this idea will gain more traction, because I think it's a very useful window opening, not in a Russian sense of window opening, in American sense, a window of opportunity for Republican senators to now find some testicles and to say that Russia is a threat, that we need to do more about helping Ukraine, or at least sanctioning Russia or whatever else we want to do, because President himself has indicated that Russia is weak, Russia is aggressor, so let's go. So I think that there's a lot of possibilities here, but bottom line is Ukraine showed strength and more strength, and that's what Donald Trump likes.
But Yuri, how do you think if Trump gives tomahawks, for example, will that force Putin to sit down at the negotiation table?
I think that it's more important that Donald Trump, in my estimation, would not mind it at all, whatever it took for Putin to realize that this is the war that needs to end. It would be fine with Donald Trump. He can't seem to reach Vladimir Putin. He made a statement that in the English-speaking world is viewed as an extreme admission of weakness, a very embarrassing statement where Trump said that I thought I had good relations with Putin, but it turned out it was all for nothing, or whatever exactly that he said, that this didn't pay off. So this relationship, and now we have the president that is shown himself to be vulnerable and lied to by Putin, and he's even kind of like okay with it. So he's just going to leave now and forget about all of this and live on his own for a while, a little bit, before he moves in with Putin completely. He's going to be living on his own for a while now that he moved out. I think that tomahawks in the end are just an idea, a symbol of what Ukraine is interested in, and what Trump could provide if he wanted to. If he wanted to show strength, this administration has a lot of levers of pressure that they could apply on Putin if they chose to, but they can't even put 10% tariffs on Russia. So they consider this to be a very important country that we want to. It's interesting when you think about it that every Secretary of State was criticized apologize for trying to, Hillary Clinton trying to reset relations with Russia. What a horrible idea. Sure, it was. But what does Donald Trump want? He wants to normalize relations with Russia. I think that's a step above reset. That's going straight to let's make peace and do well with Russia. I think that this is a approach that would be suicidal for the United States, and is notable and noticed by a lot of Republican politicians as well as Democrats. So where this goes, but at the same time, when the United States is interested in taking part in ownership of Ukrainian drone industry, tells me that Ukraine does have some aces up its sleeves and it's got plenty of cards, and Putin is in the weak position here, and he should be the one thinking about that he needs to sit down at the negotiation table. But just so for anybody curious about this whole negotiation process topic, I view it as a thermometer, in a sense that we need to stick it in a thing to see what the temperature is, but it doesn't like set the temperature. It just tests the temperature. And when we say peace process, anyone, and Putin says in Moscow only, then it's pretty clear that he's not interested. Trump sees it, Zelensky sees it, Putin knows it, everybody, it's pretty clear. So we know that there's no peace process at the moment. But if Putin shows up and says, hey, I have this thermometer right here, let's sit down at the negotiation table, that's going to be another indication of weakness, and everybody, including Putin, would know this. So it's hard to imagine him doing this. It's more likely that whoever gets rid of Putin on the Russian side will be the one to say, now we're ready, because whose fault was it? The dead guy. So let's blame Putin and then say that this was his idea, attack Ukraine in the first place, and now we're ready for negotiations. With Putin, besides, we know he breaks every agreement he makes. So I really, in the end, come back to what I said in 2022, which is no real peace can be signed with Putin.
And Yuri, you mentioned Russia's weakness repeatedly more than once in your previous answers. We see that no success on front line, and Trump recognized it about Russian Federation and their forces. We see that more than 360 gas stations have already been closed in Russia because we show our strength and we attack Russian oil refineries and strategical energy infrastructure containing with Russian-Ukrainian war objects. And so in this case, what does Putin expect in the nearest future?
I think he expects Ukrainian economy to collapse. I think he's counting on the fact that Europe said that they can't do this by themselves. United States is walking away. So he thinks it's just a matter of time until Ukraine collapses, the same way that Ukraine expects with more reason that Russia is going to collapse, because everybody's going through challenges, but Ukraine can't afford to surrender. For Russia, it's much easier to quit the war because population may support it, but they don't really care if the war goes on or not. But if Putin agrees to a ceasefire or anything, this is just throws country into further turmoil. He looks weak. It's a terrible situation for him, but not for the country. Country would be kind of in a better shape. There could be possibility of other parts of Russia splintering from Russia after if Russia is weak, simply to just get rid of sanctions. Why have sanctions? Well, you're part of Russia. Well, Russia is weak. We're goodbye Russia, and there could go Chechnya and other places. Tatarstan. I think that there's a lot of desire for Russia to demonstrate its weakness. And I think that in this world, we just need to see more countries that understand Russian threat to work together to get Russia to that weakness, to the point where Putin can press the gas pedal, but nothing is happening. And I think that is really the ultimate goal, because to say that Putin is going to say, ooh, this war is too expensive, we know that approach has failed. But if he is pushing the gas pedal and there was no war because his tanks can't get to the front lines, and at the same time, people who are protesting in Russia can't be transported to a Russian jail because there's no gasoline and the whole country is standing anything still. I mean, they can go back to, donkeys and horses and camels to transport, but it shows Russia is a very weakening state, both externally and internally, simply because we really, Russia expects they need that gasoline. I'm not telling anybody any surprises. Russian people are crazy about their cars. It's like a status thing. So, I think this is looking terrible, and Putin may never see it, but maybe somebody who stands next to him can, take care of that.
But Russian likes think about unusual historical times, about past times. So they have them now. Go back to past.
Yes, absolutely. This is the great make Russia great again. I mean, it's putting them on horses, giving them forks and torches, and that's where they're going to be going. But that's how Russia works. It's just there's every country has its own, as they say, rake to step on, and its own pitfalls, and Russia just keeps going backwards because that seems to be where they're most comfortable. It's a society that's based on strength and at the same time projects weakness. And nobody really wants to conquer Russia. This is the problem of Putin's approach, is that he thought that since nobody wants to conquer Russia because, Napoleon failed, Hitler failed, and anybody else will, can't get this kolobok, then I think he's missing the point. There's no need to conquer Russia, to occupy Russia in order to destroy it and to set it on fire, because today's technologies allow for this kind of a remote warfare, and that's another reason why Putin is missing. He's not with it. Still, Poland buys a lot of javelins, and even in spite of all the drones. So I think that Russia is going to go backwards, and but it doesn't mean that they will disappear. Look how backwards went Iran under all the sanctions, and they're still able to cause harm less, but they still harbor ideas of causing harm because if people inside the territory, inside the state, are not willing to take fate of their land in their hands, and will either support the regime or escape, then the regime is going to plow on plundering the wealth of a nation, led by stupid people, because it's easier. And if that's easier, then that's what Russia is going to get, this easy slide into the swamp, like every other authoritarian regime, because authoritarian regimes don't thrive economically. It's a loss because there's no laws, there's no trust. Again, maybe Russia, as was said by Gerson in, I believe, 1850s, whatever, that Russia is just an example for the world, a bad example. And I think that's it's doing its job better than ever.
Yes, and really Trump acknowledges that Russian economy is too weak. He told that he is watching what Russia is doing and what President Putin is doing. Trump told that he is extremely unhappy with what President Putin is doing, and I don't like it at all. He is killing people for no reason, and the Russians are acting very poorly, considering they've put everything on the line. The economy is going to hell. They're bombing everything and capturing very little territory over the past month. The Russian army has captured very little territory in Ukraine, and they are also losing some land. But at the same time, Russian dictator Putin, during a meeting with Belarusian dictator Lukashenko, said that everything is fine and excellent in the Russian economy. So who is wrong?
I think that Trump, we know, likes to, or can't help, projects. So I think when he looks at when he calls somebody who the least of all reminds of a paper tiger, I think that's a projection because I think he knows that he's got a lot of numbers, but he's a tiger, he's a pussycat. He can't really do anything because, oh, Putin. And I think that's what makes Trump ultimately very predictable to Putin. From Putin's point of view, he is working Trump as he needs to. Trump's behavior is very predictable. If things are not going well, if Trump is unhappy, Putin's going to give him a call. Putin will pet him, and Trump will purr, and everything is going to be fine for Putin. So I think that in this situation, Trump is. As is often the case with people who are like brown nosing, everybody will notice it except the person who is being brown nosed. We just have certain human fallibilities, and Trump is just an amazing collection of human imperfections and fallacies and fallibilities. So I think that Putin knows how to work with that because being a KGB, product, he knows how to influence with the speech, with money, with fear. And I think that those are all three things that are working very well in Donald Trump. He fears Putin. He wants Putin's money. And he wants to help Putin because I don't know. I think it's nice to see that part of the freedom of speech that we still have in the United States is being used to just showcase how our president is doing everything he can to help Russian president. So Donald Trump is very predictable for Americans, very predictable for Putin, but it's just so instinctive and unpredictable for Donald Trump and for who else. So it's kind of the sad reality is that it's becoming kind of predictable to the point that there's no trust. Because when Trump does something unpredictable, like call Putin aggressor, we go, well, that's strange. Let's see what he says tomorrow. Oh, tomorrow he says, Putin let me down. Okay, so there's always another tweet for every tweet, and there's no action, and there's just words. Putin knows it. Americans know it. Donald Trump is the only one who seems to be surprised.
I remember that Trump gave Putin a month once again. Will it be the last 1 month?
I think that that's all Trump can give Putin is time, but time is working against Russia now because Ukraine is using time so well that this is another month when Ukraine can set how many oil refineries in Russia on fire. Does Russia have enough refineries to last a month? So I think this help from Trump, which is I'm not going to help you with anything else because I can't do anything else. All I can do is give you time, is not working anymore. In the beginning, it seemed like this is going to be the greatest thing because of Trump, because Russia thought that they were fighting NATO, they were fighting America. If this evil Biden, if he just goes away, everything's going to be great. Well, here you have Trump who says, there you go, Volodya, you do what you can. Turns out he can't, Putin can't do anything. And Trump acknowledges again, Trump is being so strategically truthful, where he says that any self-respecting military power would have been able to do this job, but Russia can't. So I think that giving Russia and giving Putin any time that he wants is fine by Trump, in a sense that he would like to make money. He's got business projects. There's TikTok being sold. Right now, he's taking money from everybody who wants to invest, like royal family of Abu Dhabi. Putin could have been in on this, but, Putin's busy. So unless Putin is putting in the money through the royal family through Abu Dhabi, we are not seeing Vladimir take part in all the important deals that are happening right now in the world, as if he doesn't care about money anymore. Strange, Vladimir. Like he has other things that are more important. We'll see how he feels in a month. Maybe a couple of weeks will change his mind. But that's all Donald Trump can do. And I just feel it's becoming less and less sufficient for Putin. This is not the kind of help he needs from United States anymore. But United States is busy discussing whether they will give tomahawks to Ukraine, which doesn't sound like the kind of aid that Russia wants at all. So Putin found himself in a difficult position, which is all of his making. And there's finally some consequences that are coming to him, not because of Donald Trump, but because of Ukraine and Ukrainian drones and Ukrainian fighters. And Russia's kind of stuck. Let's see where he is in a couple of weeks.
We'll see and we will discuss. And you know, the Washington Post reports that new Trump statements maybe will not be realized in practice, but it can be plus because a lot more Republicans can support us because earlier they were afraid of Trump's position according to Russian-Ukrainian war, and they were neutral. But now they can make bigger support to Ukraine and even put pressure on Russian Federation. Maybe such effect we will see.
I think that that is a very positive way, an optimistic way to look at the situation, because it is true. Similarly, as in the Soviet Union, you had to find a quote from Marx. Here you find a quote from Trump. So, okay, we got a quote. So Republicans can now be strong and brave, and then they can talk about things that they should have been talking about all along, but they were afraid. With the extent to which Republicans are afraid of Trump, we see right now is we have negotiations about possible shutdown of our federal government taking place, and Democrats are saying that we don't want to talk to Republicans in Senate. We want to talk to Trump because Republicans are afraid to go to the bathroom without getting an approval from Trump. So on this level, yay, it's really nice that now Republicans like Lindsey Graham and others will be able to even stronger criticize Russia because there are Republicans that would like to see us go tough on Russia. And that does give me measure of hope that those people are still there and there's some measure of catering to their desires that we see from this president. But but in the end, we see that Republicans are afraid to actually vote against Trump, and they were called out on this by Wall Street Journal editorial, which said that Republicans ought to vote on some sanctions and put the pressure on the president so that he would be the one who would be saying, oh, I'm going to veto this and actually have to veto this and think about vetoing it or whatever, and then so moving the ball into president's corner instead of having it just kind of, well, he'll never like this anyway. It's never going to go anywhere. What's the point? So these kinds of statements from Trump that are showing that he is open to pressure on Russia in some kind of fantastical, magical way does give cover to Republicans who can now stand a little stronger. It, of course, is important to understand that everybody knows that Trump loves Putin, and so Trump is not going to do anything to hurt Putin. And so we're just now watching to see which of these Republican senators are going to discover their testicles and going to do something to stand up to Russian threat. And it's an open question because it's one thing to be silent because president will bite you. It's another thing to say something because you know the president will not bite you. And it's a third thing to actually vote for something and to take a stand, which is very difficult for Republican Party these days. They're terrified because their whole Epstein file cover-up case is crumbling because there's going to be another congressman sworn in, and then Democrats and Republicans are going to have enough votes to go around Speaker Johnson and finally vote to release the Epstein file papers. Which it could be another reason why Donald Trump may want to shut down the government altogether. So there's a lot of different issues that are happening at the same time. But the fact that Republicans are allowed to discover their spine is certainly a positive development.
Clear. Thank you for this opinion. And Yuri, how do you think? Will NATO dare to shoot down Russian fighters over its airspace?
I think that statement by the president really shocked a lot of people because this was a moment where being truthful was not what was expected. Because, yes, of course, anybody invading your space, there should be consequences. Of course, that means that would be going to war with Russia if NATO is what NATO is supposed to be. But, we know that President Trump will not go to war with Russia. No matter what Pete Hegseth gathers all the military generals for, it's not about war with Russia. Russia, no matter if the jets are flying around Alaska. We're just going to pretend that Alaska is part of Europe now. And so this is all European problem. We have nothing to do with it. But the other part is that so if there's no possibility of a kinetic war between the United States, then this is just something that happens in Europe, between Europe and who cares, whatever, that out there across the beautiful ocean. But Donald Trump just really showed in his speech to NATO what A, he thought about NATO, and B, what he thinks after he has to walk a flight of stairs because the escalator didn't work. And Donald Trump was clearly in a very crabby mood because as he was trying to run away from reporters asking questions, escalator stopped. And even though it was clearly, well, not clearly, but we have right now statements from UN saying that this is not because Donald Trump and the American administration hasn't been paying its dues to the United Nations and therefore their stuff is broken. It's because it's a member of Trump's staff that triggered a safety switch. And so because he was up a few stairs from Trump, and so the escalator stopped. Okay, so that's a bad mood right there. After that, teleprompter didn't work. Well, this is really just, is this like everybody against Trump?
Big disaster on each step, yes.
Yes, at the same time, we know that really the teleprompter is operated by White House. And then the United Nations made a huge mistake by not hiring Trump to do their remodeling 20 years ago when they could have had marble floors, but instead they have the zigzaggy thing. So I think that Donald Trump was in a bad mood and everybody was going to get some. And this time, so did Vladimir Putin. But he doesn't seem to be too concerned. And I think the way that they're responding to this is showing everybody who's paying attention that Russia just knows that Trump is theirs. So, sometimes he has a bad day. He's an old man. He's got to go up some stairs. It was terrible. I guess if they would have had like a drone that could have flown him up. But he's still not somebody that even Medvedev's statements about Trump are so mild-mannered. Ha 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 ha. So it's almost like friends at a party. So I think that Trump has done a really good job of convincing Putin that he's got Putin's best interests at heart. And so therefore, even when Trump makes these extraordinary statements in Kremlin, they feel like they've got such a good control over American president that there's no need to worry. It's just it's a chuckle. Haha.
Yes, but in general, Trump's speech on General Assembly of United Nations was very clear. And about China, about effectiveness of United Nations at all, we can agree with a lot of his sentences.
We can, but I think that ultimately what we saw was United States shifting from the position of world policeman, which is something that there was a lot of argument whether we want it, we don't want it, but we kind of have been the ruler, the law and order in the world. And now we see that we have a president who decided that he can use this leverage that being a president of the United States provides to become world gangster. And the challenge is that nobody needs America as a world gangster. America is needed as law and order. And so when he becomes this gangster, then all of a sudden the world goes, well, goodbye then. We're gonna pay respects to you. We're gonna deal with you, but you are not solving our problems. Especially since if Trump wants to act as somebody who is going to provide cover, like the mafia for a business, well, then you should provide cover, because if Russian drones are flying all over the place and Trump just says, I'm not seeing this is an accident or something, then that's not a really functioning racket setup. So Donald Trump just kind of, I think, turned everybody off for a variety of reasons. And what this tells me is that the security concept that we've had since World War II, where the United States was the security anchor for the world, we are now seeing that it's shifting to Ukraine, becoming a security blanket for Europe. And this is just a realization that I think Europe is seeing, that they need to appreciate Ukraine for what it brings to the table, which is the only defense against Russian aggression, versus United States, which is kind of making these statements. Yeah, I can say truth about this, truth about that, and point fingers at everyone and tell that they're all going to hell. But I have to say, the response from every American commentator and person that I've spoken to and seen who experienced this speech by president, it's just embarrassing. It's shameful. It's those kinds of emotions that people are sharing, because people who pay attention to this, and there's a lot of people who just don't pay attention, and so there is no feeling there. But if you if you saw what happened, and you care about America, this was an extremely embarrassing presentation that showed President of the United States trying to be a gangster instead of a leader of the free world. And there will be consequences for this, because other countries are not going to rely on the United States anything other than a corrupt supplier of weapons, which there are other ways to get that as well. And if we're not going to be supplying things fast enough, Ukraine showed what can happen with weak America and weak Russia, and Ukraine that needs to defend itself. And we see that Ukraine takes care of exploding and blowing up Russia. This just all makes United States less and less relevant on the world stage.
You are quite right here, really. Such different roles of one big country, big state, United States of America. But maybe Trump will change, and his role too in it. Stay, believe, and see. Yuri, thank you very much for this conversation, for your interesting, unique thoughts, and for your time. See you next week. Take care.
Thank you so much. I urge everyone to subscribe to me on Substack. Find Rashkin Report and subscribe to me there. And thank you, Irina. And we'll discuss if Trump changed his mind next week.
Sure. Yuri Rashkin, host of YouTube channel Rashkin Report and Rashkin Report in English. And my name is Irina Uzlova. Guys, thank you for joining us. Subscribe to our YouTube channel too, War and Politics 24, and for Yuri Rashkin's YouTube channels also, not only Substack. See you next week. Take care.
Take care.